One second. All right, can you guys see my screen? Right. So this lecture is probably the most useful for the startups or companies. After you launch a product, you kind of start to think about how you can grow your companies more. And then last week we talked about pirate metrics. So kind of you started to understand the concept of funnel, each of the the campaign for sales, marketing, product. No matter what you're going to try to acquire users or retain or trying to make money, anything you need to think about based on the funnel and specific KPI you want to try to improve, right? And then today, what we're going to talk about is how you can grow faster. And then I wanted to introduce what is a growth hacking too. And then the concept of the growth hacking is grow any type of the numbers by spending minimum effort and maximizing outcome. So it's very simple. Nothing like hacking the system. It's more like hacking the growth activities too, right? And then a few examples are to quickly devise more promising way to fill growth in all stages. And then a few examples are here: how to get new customers, engage, activate, and win them over so they can keep coming back for more. Adapt to ever-changing needs and desire. Turn potential user and customer into growing source of revenue, and then turn them into passionate ambassador and engine of word of mouth growth, right? So this one is just example of the campaigns, you guys can do it. But thing is, if you're gonna think about the funnel, this one actually affect to the awareness, acquisition, activation, retention, referral, and revenue. So again, left side is a campaign, the right side is a KPI, right? So when you think about, all right, I'm gonna think about the next campaign, what I'm gonna do. Let's say you're gonna post it a bunch of the stuff on Facebook, and especially you want to list up the Facebook page. The things you want to do is probably increasing awareness, also acquisition too, right? So that's no matter what type of campaign you're gonna do, especially a business side of a person, you need to think about what's the specific KPI you want to increase, right? It's very simple. No matter what you're gonna do, you need to think about how it can affect to the numbers, right? And then for examples here, big companies right now, for example, like a Dropbox. Actually, Dropbox is not the first company who made sharing, crowd sharing. Actually, they are the latest one. And then, so for them, after they build a product, could not break out beyond early adopters, and then user data analysis showed that third of the users came from referral from current users. And then they start to think about how about we're going to implement a referral program. So I'm not sure if you guys can remember the Dropbox. That was probably 9 or even probably 10 years ago. I was in London back then. The thing is that was very new. People just started to upload your document, any type of file into cloud, right? So the things people did it was a Dropbox. They did it was more storage space exchange for referral. So if I invite it to everyone, I get the extra storage. That's it, right? So instead of Dropbox team, they are trying to reach out to a potential user and customers. Basically, existing users, I become the evangelist of the product. And then I refer the product to you guys. And then I get the most trades from you guys too, right? And then they grow the service from 100K to 4 million users within 14 months. The reason why they also did it was because there are existing players like Microsoft and Google. So they try to compete against big players showing the Google ads, right? But things these specific new keyword was very expensive for them. So it means the customer acquisition cost the same for any type of the company too, right? Because they wanted to buy Google cloud storage, right? So Dropbox, they didn't have enough resource to compete against huge company. That's why they're trying to leverage existing customers database, trying to get more users, right? And then second one is the Airbnb. before they become like a quite famous, they really struggle to attract customers, and then they launched the site 3 times until they run host of the experience to find the growth, most of which fell. And then before they came up with the hack to cross-publishing Airbnb listing on Craigslist. So at the beginning, they built on website. They're trying to promote by themselves. The thing is, the reach was very difficult for them. So they have done 3 times. And after the 3 times, they started to find out, actually, do you guys know Craigslist? Craigslist? Oh, Kota, you don't know. Okay, so Craigslist is the actually quite messy website, listing site, let's say. But things people still use it like crazy. And then so many like business idea coming from Craigslist. Actually, Airbnb is like one. Another one probably like Mercari is like similar to, and then even like LinkedIn, like so many things like happen from like Craigslist. And then founder is called Craig from San Francisco. That's why it's called like a Craigslist. And then they haven't changed the UI and UX since they launched the product, because the thing is, so many people are still using it. And then they decided to not to change the website because like people already like familiar with the things too, right? But for the Airbnb, back to like this topic, they noticed that so many like potential users and customers for Airbnb on the Craigslist. So basically, they build a cross-publishing Airbnb site and to the Craigslist, right? So it means if I upload it to like my place to Airbnb, also I can like basically share to like Craigslist too. But that's basically acquisition channel for Airbnb too, right? But also like a host site. So that's like they try to improve the awareness side too, right? And then 2 more examples. LinkedIn struggled to gain traction in the past year, and then growth skyrocketed with ingenious way to painlessly upload and invite email contacts stored in Outlook address book. It means the founder of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, LinkedIn was like a fast professional social network site, and then everybody say this is useless. By the time you're gonna have at least 1 million users. So question could be, can you grow 1 million users too, right? And then it was very difficult for everyone to start to do it because no one has the professional networks, social network site before, right? It's like the same time on the Facebook too. And then the way how they start to do is like how you communicate business wise, what type of like application you use in terms of business. You probably use like an email more than Facebook, right? But that's why with Hoffman or LinkedIn, like the team, they start to think about how about we're gonna basically like implement a new feature. Basically, people just can upload their contact list, and then I can invite and then basically share the link to like LinkedIn, like basically join LinkedIn. It's still exists, but thing is that people really don't use it at this moment. And then basically LinkedIn grow 1 million users, and then it took like quite long for them too. And then last one is PayPal. Peter Thiel was like Elon Musk is like a founder of like PayPal too. And then they began to investigate how people were using PayPal on eBay, and then created the alt link tool that's automatically added to the PayPal logo and link to sign up to all of the active auction listing. This tool tripled the number of the auction using PayPal on the eBay. Basically, it means for them, eBay was already like a listed site too, right? So people just like buy and sell too. But the thing is like for the eBay, there was no payment system yet. And then they noticed that for the PayPal team, they noticed that actually like many of the active users, they use like a PayPal when they sell it or buy on the eBay. So that's why they make it this experience like smooth as much as possible. And then they grow super quickly. And after PayPal, they went to public, basically eBay acquired too, right? So you need to think about like how you can grow your service faster, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to grow your business, because they're like usually you are not the only company trying to build this type of like a business, and many of the other companies, they are trying to do like similar things too, right? Plus one is any questions so far? We do have like 2 more parts on this. Is okay? Code seems okay, Vism okay. All right, cool. And then to get ready for your startup's growth, you need to prepare metrics part. To do so, you need to understand like 2 types of the concept. One is a North Star metrics. Another one is a growth equation, right? And then what is a North Star matrix? Basically, North Star matrix is like, it's kind of like, basically the concept when used to be, right? When people travel, they didn't have like a GPS, anything. So basically they look up the star, they find like a North Star, and then they try to identify where they are, which direction they're supposed to head. So that's why they use like a North Star metrics for the startups. And then they use it like a North Star metrics right now for the business-wise for startups. And then best to choose one because it's again like a North Star metrics doesn't use like a few, right? And then key metrics of ultimate success, that's all growth activities is geared toward to hone your growth equation and narrow your focus, right? And then hugely helpful in keeping teams to focus on the most productive use of their time and avoiding the wasting of resource that generally result from the scattershot approaches to growth experiment. So you don't need to think about like a growth experiment like that much, but the thing is, no matter what you're gonna do like a campaign, again, is it like a sales campaign, marketing campaign, or product campaign, you need to think about what's the most important the metrics you want to improve this week, next week, or like next month, or like this quarter, for example. To do so, like what type of the stuff is like useful for you too, right? And then how you can basically decide the North Star metrics is it's like based on the core value of the product, right? So that's why so far we encourage for teams to launch the product as soon as possible, all right? And then North Star should be the metrics that most accurately capture the core value you create for your customers and users. And then to determine what that is, you must ask yourself which of the variable in your growth equation best represents the delivery of that must-have experience you identify for your product. Because like this experience, as we study, is based on the user's feedback, you can receive it. So like to identify the North Star metrics, you need to launch a product and then talk to users. And then either you already have a hypothesis, this could be ideal value and benefit, or your user and customers, they can describe this could be useful for me, and then I receive this like a benefit or value too, right? So that decide what type of like metrics or North Star metrics you want to have it, right? A few examples here: a number of the views, download, active users, daily base, weekly base, and monthly base, paid users, usage, and retention rate. It really depends on the type of the business. For example, if you are building a media business, most important like metrics, it's such a North Star metrics could be like a number of the views, right? And then if you are building like a different type of, for example, like a SaaS store or like an enterprise, in that case, probably number of the paid users too, right? It doesn't matter how active they are, because no matter if they are active like 100 times per month or like 10 times per month, basically, if they pay the same price, it's actually the most important to track the number of the paid users too, right? So any type of North Star metrics is like it depends on the business. But that's why we do have like a weekly mentorship, and then we try to like find out what could be the North Star metrics for you guys or each of the companies do, right? Second question so far. Feel free to ask. It's actually a little bit difficult to understand. Yeah, go ahead. Let's take a Rhythm's question first, and the second, like let's take the Kota's question, right?
So you defined North Star metric and you said that we should consider our growth equation. So like what did you mean by growth equation there?
That's I'm going to talk about next.
Okay, you're gonna talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And my question was, when you're thinking of you said North Star metrics, uh, I'm assuming you'll probably have to create multiple stages of the North Star metrics. Am I right? Or would this North Star metrics be like the very, very, very end goal, late stage, late game goal for the company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's North Star metrics can be changed, not necessarily like quite frequently, but things like it can be changed based on the stage of the companies, for example, right? And then once you just like let's say like Namaste.ai is an incubation stage, you just like launch product, and then the things you want to do is probably the number of the usage of the users too, right? you want to increase number of the usage. It's not just like one time a day. Maybe like you're going to increase like 10 times a week or 100 times a week too, right? That could be because you can see like, who is like using, how often they are using too, right? And then, so like, after you started to like, for example, I identify you have like probably like 100 users, let's say, and then like 50 of them, they use twice or 3 times a week, right? In that case, maybe actually you can start to monetize from them too, right? From like a Namaste, right? In that case, you can change it from number of the usage to the revenue, for example. It can be changed, but thing is, I wouldn't recommend to change it weekly base. It's better to like based on my experience, like we have changed like every quarter, for example. Every quarter, like we try to like do like, all right, we're gonna try to increase more like a number of the users, right? And then we try to like trying to gain like from like 100 like 1,000 users to like 200,000 users, and then that's we try to do it. And then after we got like probably like 500,000 users, we changed the North Star matrix. It's no more new users. We should try to actually make them increase like a stickiness too, right? Because it's kind of like if you like used to be 100 users, now we have like 500 users too, right? So we have like a number of the download activated users, like 500,000 users. However, if no one is using, it's kind of like a pointless too, right? So we really try to like increase the next like stage. People like become like these like 500,000 users. We try to make them basically everyone. We try to make everyone is like an active users, like a weekly base. So like my suggestion is like probably depends on stage. Probably each quarter is good, and then once your company become like a later stage, like for example, like pre-IPO companies, each department, each team has like a own North Star metrics, right? And for example, like a Facebook, they are like a North Star metrics. After like quite recently, probably after like 3 years ago, their North Star metrics was like a monthly active users. But they didn't think about like making money that much, because for them, essentially, if they can increase a number of the active users, their business model is like their business model works for making more money, right? Because it's basically media company, right? Basically, like they are showing like us too, right? So for them, that's why it's like a second priority for them. Like the monetization side for them always has been number of the active users, and then actually like, Twitter is like the same too. Last quarter, they just like announced. I think like last week they announced they are like the last quarterly result. They increased like a 1.7% of the like monthly or like weekly active users rate. And then of course it grow their revenue too, right? Because like people use more. And then for them, in order to increase the active users, they have implemented like so many like features. One is like a voice features. Another one is like same as like Instagram story. People just like share story and stuff too. So they have like an experiment in order to increase the monthly active users. So I would say depends on stage, depends on the like a core, like that depends on the company's like a stage, and you can like change it. But thing is, it's not necessary to change like weekly or monthly basis. Probably like monthly or like the quarterly base for the early stage company like you guys, and then probably like you guys can see like how you can change it too. So like that's like a great question. Yeah.
And so from what I'm getting, this impression is like it's more of like a short-term goal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but thing is, it's not like a daily base. It's not like each campaign you want to achieve. You want to achieve like a specific campaign, right? Because campaign is like one experiment you want to do, right? We're just gonna put it to like a billboard on Olympic. You're gonna see how many like people they're gonna download like a new app on the, let's say like Olympic app, right? For example, that's a specific campaign too, right? The thing is like in order to achieve like a specific campaign for them, to make the clear goal for the campaign, actually they do have like a clear North Star matrix. They are supposed to have it actually, right? Yeah.
Thank you.
And then move to like Rhythm's question. What is a growth equation, right? And then growth equation is a simple formula that represents all of the key factors that will combine to drive your growth. In other words, your core set of the growth levers. This equation is different for every product or business. Okay. And then source of the growth is like a hard truth. No amount of like marketing and advertising can make people love a substandardized product. And then building a virality into the product only after it has been determined as a must-have. Means your product needs to achieve like a must-have product, right? But to do so, you basically need to launch a product and get feedback from like a potential user and customers. You do have a clear persona, and they are like happy to using your product for using your product too, right? And then lab create growth, not the other way around, because back to like a panel, when people make referral, they already love your product. Therefore, everybody wanted to talk about your product too, right? No one wanted to talk about the product, they don't like it. Maybe like they like to talk about how sucks it was, but things usually people don't talk about it, right? Usually. And then for there to be love, there need to be that aha moment too, right? And then we already discussed the 1 second. The aha moment here, that's like from the previous slide in the like bottom. Post-launch aha moment is the goal is to test your hypothesis to identify how your product works for users and customers. And that the moment that's a utility of the product usually clicks for the users. For example, like a Namaste's case is upload picture, get feedback. Or maybe like not only for getting feedback, like probably like your Namaste can read out, give a voice feedback. Not sure yet, but thing is that's you need to test it too, right? What's the minimum functionality that user wanted to have it too, right? And then when the users usually get the core value, and then why that product is a must-have. Sorry. And then the aha moment turns early adopter into power users and evangelists. And then these again, early adopter turn into the power users and evangelists because they really love your product. No one wanted to talk about good things about your product, only if they love your product. And if they don't like your product, or if they hate your product, or if they don't use your product, no one want to talk about your product, right? That's why it is very important to identify just like early adopters, even like 3 or 5 people who really love your product as soon as possible, right? So going back to like the previous slide. Yeah. For example, right? This is like example of the North Star matrix and the growth equation. And then subscription business North Star matrix is a subscribers revenue growth, right? This is a North Star matrix. And then if you're gonna think about growth equation, this one is a formula, right? You want to grow subscribers revenue growth, you need to have like few factors. Number one is the website traffic, multiple email conversion rate, multiple active users rate, multiple conversion rate to paid subscribers. This one is including like from the awareness part, activation. Awareness, acquisition, activation. And then this one is talking about new users too. And plus retain subscribers means existing users who are already paying your product, keep paying your product too, right? And plus reactivated like a subscriber who used to be subscribers who stop it. The thing is you are trying to make them reactivate again, right? These like 3 components, how you can get the new users, new subscribers. And then what's the retained subscribers? And then how you can make old retained subscriber to reactivate again. That's like a formula, right? This is only for like a subscription business. Let me give you like a few more examples because like each business has like a different like a formula, okay? And then eBay's case, right? So their North Star matrix was like gross merchandise volume growth. This metrics is quite common to use for a marketplace because basically they are selling stuff too, right? And then again, that's the North Star metrics. And then the growth equation, like, coming from like a few factors. One, number of the sellers are listing items, multiple number of listed items, multiple number of the buyers, and multiple number of the successful transaction. Means basically it's coming from the seller side, right? Sorry, it's coming from the seller side, and then they're just gonna like selling the stuff too, right? Because if you have a buyer side, if there is no any merchandise, like no point they're gonna visit your website too, right? So that's why for the usually like a marketplace type of like a business, even like a demand and supply, usually my suggestion is like a build seller side of the demand. So it's like the same for like Uber too, because everybody's already take a taxi before Uber too, right? But like the problem back then was very difficult, or it takes time to take a cab in the US, right? So that's why as long as they can assure there is the seller who can become a taxi driver, there is no any new behavior for the buyer side, because for them, it's just gonna be like cheaper, it's just gonna be more convenient, right? For like the question for them, they tried to build for the Uber was how you can make, like who you can make the drivers do, right? And then back then they discussed, should we have like own black cab? The black cab is basically limo. They try to actually like, own like a 5 or like 10 cars in San Francisco. But thing is like they noticed that it doesn't scale it. So how about you're gonna ask existing like limo drivers, make them like a taxi drivers, right? And then they can actually increase the like more customers by using Uber. That's kind of like an original idea. They did it in San Francisco, right? And then people just gonna like buy it, and then successful transaction too. This one could be like useful for the marketplace. Anyone like stuff you're gonna sell it, you're gonna buy, right? And Amazon's case is the slightly like similar, but things like slightly different. For their case is the revenue growth. That's like their North Star metrics, and then it's like a formula is coming from the vertical expansion. Multiple product inventory per vertical means like specific like a vertical, but things like how many product each like a vertical has it too, right? And then multiple traffic per product page, multiple like a conversion rate to purchase, multiple average purchase value, multiple like a repeat purchase behavior too, right? Means for them, they know how they can build a business by selling the books, right? The reason why they actually like focusing on books was because it is very easy to identify the type of the book by typing the title. That's why Jeff Bezos, they decided to like try to sell the books. Because again, if you type the title, you know the type of like stuff you want to buy too, right? The thing is, if you're gonna type it to like other stuff, it's actually there are like so many versions, so many the like a size and different stuff. You need to think about it too, right? So that's why he started to do like the selling the books. But thing is, he noticed that this like a playbook could be used for like a different type of like a vertical. So after like he started to sell the books, he's just gonna start to expand like a different verticals. But thing is like for him, since day one, it's basically the same. He started to sell the books, and then he tried to think about in order to grow their revenue more, he just needs to try to think about what type of like a vertical he can expand it to, right? And then basically like now Amazon, it covers basically like, all merchandise too, right? Go ahead. Yeah, go on.
Is a vertical then like a category or like a domain?
Vertical is like, yeah, it's a good question. It's basically the same as like, domain. It's like the same as category. Depends on like how you use it. But thing is like this one is basically a synonym. Vertical, category, type, domain is like quite similar to. Depends on like the context you use like different type of one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, vertical is like this way. Yeah, specific depths, right? So it's not just selling one book. You want to like penetrate like a specific market. Amazon trying to increase the product inventory per vertical too, right? So instead of like selling one specific good, not just 100, trying to like 10,000, like 100,000 too, right? Means if you go to Amazon, basically you can buy any books too, right? And then after he succeeded, he started to expand like a different type of like, vertical, different type of like category of like merchandise or product, let's say, right? And then metrics that matter. The first step in determining your growth strategy and then figuring out where to focus equal. I mean, basically for you guys, if you're gonna start to think about like what could be like a North Star matrix and what could be the growth equation for you guys, you need to think about to understand which metrics matter most of your product and growth. So you can think about for like a Namaste, what type of like metrics like it's like what type of like metrics matter most for your users, right? What type of like metrics can imply the number of like users, the usage, or like probably how much they can get value or benefit from your product too, right? That's you need to start to think about. So actually, it doesn't matter number of like download, right? In this case, probably like usage is like the most makes sense for the early stage companies. That's kind of like I usually help the early stage company to see how much like a usage you can get it. And then after the usage, you can find out there are like 10 people, they do have like a different type of like usage graph. And then you're gonna think about just like a top like 10 or 20% of users, he or she or they use like quite often your product. And then ask them, hey, like can we set up the call? And then usually these people can describe the core value of your product and the benefit better than even like you guys. And then they can basically explain like why you are using and what type of like benefit you are getting from. And then can you imply like what type of like people they can benefit from this product too, right? And then these potential customer users could be ideal evangelists of your product too, right? That's like we discussed. And then few examples more based on the product for the Facebook's case too, right? For the Facebook type of the metrics they had it was they're like again North Star metrics was monthly active users, and then for the growth equation part, different type of like a KPIs, they track the how many users invite people to join their friend circle. This one was like a kind of back then, and then second one is how frequently they visit the site, right? And then how many posts and the comment they make. It means like how many times they visit, not only for visiting, how many interaction they do to other people too, right? Maybe I post my stuff, I maybe like comment to like your stuff too, right? That's increase the usage of the product too, right? And then how much time they spend on the site too. That's basically like a session length too, right? We're gonna talk about all the like metrics. That's analytics part. That's we're gonna talk about like a next week. But thing is, you can start to like build a foundation right now. And then second one is the Uber essential metrics for the riders is ride complete, right? And then also number of the new people download the app, number of the ride are being booked, and number of the riders who return and rebook, right? That's again increasing the usage and the frequency with which they are booking new ride. So like they again trying to increase the usage on the last end too, right? And then, but the thing is like for them, doesn't matter how many like the ride they like book it, like they wanted to make sure they have done like an entire experience too, right? Not only for booking, the things for them wanted to make sure is the number of the rides is completed too, right? Because that's the experience they wanted to make sure they provide too, right? Yeah. And then rest of the stuff is like, you're gonna think about like a funnel, number of the people downloaded is like acquisition part, number of the ride being booked is the like activation, also equal like revenue, number of like riders who return rebook is the retention, also like effective like revenue side, and then which they are booking the new ride is like a frequencies again like a retention too, right? And then if somebody has a high frequency, and these people tend to become like evangelists too, right? And if they're gonna think about we wanted to try to like new users more, they can target like a specific type of users. Hey, we noticed Jim, you use like quite often. We're gonna give you like a specific coupon. If you invite like 5 people, we're gonna give you like $100 for like a next coupon too, right? In that case, probably I probably like tend to invite more people down rather than the people who really don't use Uber too, right? And two more example. Actually, like 3 more example. And then business specific factors, probably that's also like another important things you need to understand it. You guys know the Airbnb, right? Have you ever used it? Oh yeah. How often do you use like a rhythm? Before Corona.
I think I use it like 2 times a year. That's it.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corona, and then you know the Airbnb, but thing is, have you ever booked anywhere and stay?
I think maybe we've done that once, but we use, I think, other booking sites to book
Oh yeah.
for where we stay.
I see. Oh, that's good. Actually, that's like a good question. That's like a good answers from you guys. So for Airbnb, doesn't matter daily active users, right? Because people don't travel every daily base, right? So no matter how much they love the service, no one is going to search and make a vacation booking every day, right? Means probably once in quarter and twice a year, 3 times a year, maybe like when you take a vacation. And then for like business trip is like slightly different. I guess it increase like a frequency, but thing is for them, they didn't track the people daily base. For them, it's like a quarterly based active users because doesn't make sense like people if you track like a daily base or weekly base, if no one uses it, it's kind of pointless too, right? So based on the business specific process, you need to think about like what's the frequency too, right? And another one is the Yelp. Yelp is probably like in Japan is like similar to Taberogu, I think. That's like quota and probably treasure, you guys know. And then daily use is unlikely metrics. And then because like searching the site perhaps once or twice a week might represent strong regular use, right? Maybe like when you go to like let's say when you go to a new cafe and restaurant, maybe like no one go to. Probably some people they do every day, but thing is probably if you go out, right? Maybe you have like a nice coffee, nice like giraffe ice cream, or like in a restaurant like a burrito or whatever. Probably that's once or like twice a week, right? It's not probably daily based, right? And then these products simply simplify have built-in ceiling when it comes to how often a single customer needs their service to, right? So Airbnb and then Yelp. Then Facebook, however, it is very important for them to track a daily active usage too, right? And there is no limit to the number of the times one can visit in a day, right? It's advertising-based revenue model is premised on having a lot of users who spend considerable time on the site too, right? So for them, any of like social media site, they try to increase the daily active users as much as possible because that's basically part of the business, also like a nature of their business too, right? It's a basically news site too, right? Probably I subscribe like in news media. I read, I listen every day because news is basically daily content that I wanted to like consume too, right? It's not like a probably weekly news, right? But that's like again, you need to think about business specific factors. So that's why the week 2 and the week 3, we ask the teams to have the user interface and what's like how often, right? What's the usage, how often, and when they face this problem too, right? That was like a last slide. So any questions? Happy to discuss with you guys too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm still struggling with finding the relation between North Star metric and the growth equation. So is growth equation a breakdown of North Star metric, or is it like growth equation are the less prioritized factors? North Star one is the priority one factor, but they're
Yeah,
still
so North Star, so North Star matrix is the most important metrics. And then to increase a North Star matrix, you have like a growth equation. That's like a second like a priority of like a specific KPIs, right? So if you wanted to achieve the usage of like a Namaste, right? Probably, let's say the usage of like a Namaste, the usage of like a Namaste.ai, right? That's like a North Star matrix, and then that's equation equal, right? Number of the new download, number of the conversion rate from download to like activated users too, right? For example, right? And then number of the reactivation users, if you already have like 100 of users too, right? These are 3 factors. That's a part of the equation part. But like for you, it's mostly important things in order to increase the usage. That's the North Star matrix. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So for example, like another example, that's like we discussed like last week. Number of the usage at this moment, you're trying to acquire new users by yourself, right? The thing is that actually, if you work with like yoga trainers, maybe they can use Namaste to their student, and then from like these yoga instructors, maybe like these like a student, they use it too, right? And then this also increase the usage too, right? But that's why it's coming from like who's like the target persona too. Even though it's showing the same KPIs or specific, same like a KPI and a specific North Star metrics, these like small like optimizations, it can happen based on the persona too. Right.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. But for me, like in order to understand like, these like a concept like a North Star matrix and the growth equation and stuff, it took basically 10 years clearly understand, and still I am learning because each business model has like different like a component too, right? And each campaign, each like experiment is like different too. So it's kind of like new things you need to catch up to. But thing is for me, I have done like a different type of like a business, like a retail marketplace, like a social, and also like a SaaS, or even like a co-working space in the VCs too, right? There's so many things that I have done. So therefore, I do have a slightly better understanding is like a usual first time entrepreneur, because for them, it is actually difficult for them to understand like what's like a growth equation, especially at the beginning. And then that's why you need to talk to like a mentor and advisor who has experience before too, right? They can give you a kind of like overview of the product and then overview of the like growth equation too, right? Because otherwise, if you build a stuff, the thing is if you cannot grow your business, it's very difficult to track if your product is like a successful or not, right? That's why in order to see if your product works for your users or not, you also need to have like a specific like a KPI to see the performance too. Yeah. Cool. Kora, Nemo-san, or Treasure, do you guys have any question? Okay, sounds good. I mean, I just give you like the concept. So happy to discuss and happy to help you to have the clear idea what could be like a North Star matrix for your service and how it look like your growth equation as well, because it's a difficult. Oh, okay, yeah, Kota's. I just saw the Kota's message. What is about to go? Yeah, because it takes time to break down your service into the growth equation too, right? Okay, in that case, we can stop the recording.